Hi, Ron. We're at AI Engineers Europe in London, and I'm joined by Nick and Zack from WorkOS. Do you guys want to tell us what you've been, I know you've been doing a lot of workshops and you've been very much in the weeds of building actual AI tools that get used in the real world. What are you excited about and sharing with people at the conference?
Yeah. So we had a great workshop recently. I think the things that are kind of top of mind for me, and the thing that I did talk about yesterday was, these tools are sort of nuclear now, if you will, right? And it's incredible how fast you can go, especially if you have certain kind of dev patterns in your brain, and now you're no longer typing; the agents are doing it for you. And there's almost a temptation to just continue stacking more and more loops endlessly and go faster and faster and faster. So what I've been thinking about is like, how do we find developer balance where you're still getting all of the key work that you need to get done, but you're not burning yourself out faster than ever before, essentially.
Is that kind of like related to, I don't know if you saw Matt Pocock's talk, he was talking about having like bigger chunks of things that have like defined kind of inputs, outputs for the LLM to use. Is that?
I didn't catch that. I was thinking of it in terms of just kind of like in keeping the human in the loop, but almost like quantizing the self in the sense of, like, one trick that I use is just feed my biometric data in through URA and other things into my LLMs. And so I can actually have the same interface that I use to develop all week long and that is aware of my projects kind of push back on me and say, yeah, that sounds great, but you also slept 3 hours last night. So
No way.
yeah, so maybe we put a pause on that until tomorrow. After you've had a nap.
Is it actually?
Claude will push back, and it's enough of a kind of pushback for me to think about it. I don't always listen to Claude, but
I feel like if you had 3 hours sleep, you're just like, shut the hell up. Like,
yeah,
I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing, and I gotta go faster than ever before. And sometimes I do that, but so it's an evolving thing. But that's kind of been fun for me to kind of experiment with.
Okay, wow.
And then also, of course, like, can we get the same amount of quality work done, but spend less time at the desk? And that's something I was kind of focusing on in my talk, is that, especially with voice first mode, I can hit 184 words per minute as opposed to 90. So does that afford a 2-hour walk in the woods or at lunch kind of thing? And I think it does some days, for sure. Especially because you can still poke, especially with remote control now in Claude, you can kind of still review code as it's coming in and still direct your agents and say, that's not quite what I meant, and do this piece differently. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about. But we've been having a blast doing workshops. We put on a really good workshop for the first day too.
Yeah, I'm excited about all the things that he's excited about, but I don't have my biometric data hooked into that. But I'm just excited about the redefining of this profession. And there's a lot of pieces to that, and a lot of self-realizing that's going on, like with everyone, I think. And there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt and all of that too. But it's really exciting. And it's kind of taking us back to first principles on what we're actually doing and just allowing us to redefine that, whether it's taking long walks in the woods and pushing code, or just figuring out how to have this symbiotic relationship with the machine now that can kind of reason on its own a little bit more.
Yeah. Maybe this is just it's in some ways it's an arbitrary point in time, but I remember coming to this amazing Mastra workshop that you did at the AI Engineers. I think that was more or less a year ago,
yeah,
right?
June.
Yeah. How do you think like you're working differently since then? If you can even, I don't know, that's an impossible question to remember what you were doing at that time.
That was really the start of this. And in a lot of ways, that workshop, like building that workshop, was like, wow, these tools can actually do that, because Claude was very instrumental in getting that workshop done on time.
May or may not have been done in the lobby of the hotel. Yeah, hours, but
that was great.
Yeah,
and that was like a real proving point for us, because we were like, we did this in such a short amount of time, and the quality didn't reflect that. The quality was there.
Yeah.
And it just helped us to move so much faster and get things laid out in the exact way that we wanted, without having to have all of this minutia going back and forth. Like, the main thing that we did was like, we did the thing where you have separate branches in Git with like the different steps that we were on. So if you didn't get caught up on, the second step,
Yeah.
you can skip to the third step by just checking out that branch. And doing all of that is so tedious, like
Yeah.
when you're building a workshop. And I just like described that to Claude and it did it. And this isn't Claude 4, right? This is like 3.7 or whatever it was back then. And it did it. And then like, we'd change a bunch of stuff and it'd be like, oh, we have to fix all of this. And it just fixed it. And it just worked every time. And I really left that workshop realizing that I'm not going to be writing code anymore. And I don't think that I've written a line of code by myself since then.
Yeah, I changed directory the other day and typed something to PB copy and felt that was like the most muscle memory I'd used in a really long time. I think to some degree, like you've seen certain like signs of maturation, like the workshop that we did a couple of days ago now with skills, like being able to, since that first workshop, being able to talk about skills as being like a defined unit of work that we can develop ourselves. And it's useful even if I'm just a solo dev. It's especially useful when Nick and I are sharing skills back and forth as we do. And it's now amplifying it across the team when we put it in a way, maybe in a repo and then behind a plugin marketplace, as Nick has done, so that the whole team can benefit and share, and that's kind of what our workshop was about this time. So I think there's like signs of like the ecosystem maturing and people finding out which primitives are making sense. And the fact that skills kind of started as a Claude thing, but is now, was like applicable to Codex and other systems as well.
Yeah. We both gave talks today separate from the workshop, but I think they tie back to the workshop in that in those talks, we both said like that we are the bottleneck in this whole process of software development now. And the focus on skills in that workshop was really to just say like, how do we, remain human in the loop, but not be so much of a bottleneck and have these reproducible ways of either extracting the information out of us in a way that doesn't feel like it's pulling teeth, and also just keeping it on track with like, this is exactly how I like to work. This is what you need to do. This is the steps that you need to take. And just like having a way to codify that so that we can repeat that over and over without having to type it out every single time.
Yep. Yeah. What have been the skills that you have like found most useful?
Image generation is huge. So that for us is, not just for mock-ups and diagrams and stuff, but just for fun, like doing pixel art and adding some color to some writing or a blog post. But Nick's got a terrific ideation skill that we all use where if you're working on something large, let's say it's an architectural refactor or you're starting a new project, it'll kind of internalize this sort of like variable of certainty and keep on asking you questions to discover and kind of like clear up the fog of war until you have a really clear picture. And then it says, okay, now I'm clear enough to begin implementation.
Yeah.
Finding that to be super useful.
In a lot of ways, it's like superpowers, if you've ever used that one, the brainstorm skill in that. But it has its own internal rubric about what it means to understand what I'm asking for. And it grades that. So it really takes advantage of having a confidence score on 5 different points. And if the confidence isn't greater than 95% on what I'm asking it to do, and like it understanding what I'm actually asking for, and it understanding, is it actually possible? Do I actually understand how to do what you're asking for?
Yeah.
If either of those are less than 95%, then it just repeatedly asks you questions over and over to get to that point, and it won't stop.
And you find that that's very helpful, I'm guessing.
To me, like I can start with a sentence. I want to do this, and I pass it to the ideation skill. And then it's like, well, what do you mean by that? And instead of me having to like have the foresight of like coming to it and describing, a big monologue about the thing I want to do, we would both use Whisperflow too to just talk to the machine all the time. But instead of me having to come to that, I can just start with a sentence, and then it like extracts the information out of me through those questions. And I just find that such a more pleasurable way to work for me.
Yeah.
Just because like in my head when I'm starting to do that, and I'm just like, I forget like everything in that moment. So it's like a reinforcement to just make sure that I am actually giving it the information that makes sense.
And I guess it's just making less assumptions at that point and like removing those.
Once it comes out, it creates a contract, like a human readable contract.
Yeah.
And I go through and read that. And if there's any issue, anything that I don't agree with, we just keep iterating over and over. But then once I approve that, then it starts making like the specs that it's actually going to work from. And then it goes from there. And it's all set up to do it in phases so that you can reset the context and start from scratch each time. So you're not, starting with 300,000 tokens already consumed and going from there. You're going to face that context drop.
Yeah. I'm finding even, and there's a skill builder skill built into Claude, and that infrastructure, if you will, is also incredibly useful. We talked about scanning your last developer's week worth of messages in Claude.
Yeah.
And looking for patterns and saying, where were the inefficiencies? What did we struggle to do? What did I have to re-describe to you over and over again? And then kind of plucking those out as discrete units of work so that the system, or your harness, if you will, gets even better for next week, and you don't have to re-explain yourself. It's token saving, it's more efficient, and it can be shared. Those units of work can then be published and shared with other team members too.
That's amazing. Yeah, it makes sense. And is it just like when you're sharing it with people, is it like how are you doing that? Is it
right now? It's a variety of ways. I mean, it tends to go in a GitHub repo. There's still awkwardness around secrets and sharing secret. Like how do you? It's still, you sort of roughly follow the 12-factor app pattern, like keeping your secrets on the source code, etc. It can be really helpful to put a plugin marketplace in front as like an interface where everyone can run uniform commands, plug in, add. First you install the marketplace, then you plug in, add the specific skill, and that would lend itself to a script that everyone could run, for example.
Yeah.
To get on the same page and have the same capabilities as well.
Yeah.
So
okay.
But I expect that's going to continue.
Yeah, that's really the easiest way right now that we found. It's a little bit harder for like our like non-technical colleagues who maybe don't have a GitHub account, like to understand how to do that and like pull all of it in, especially like in the Claude desktop app. It is like they have a GUI for it. It's pretty simple. But we've also, for them, they're doing a lot of just like create skill, and it creates a .skill file in Claude desktop, and they drag and drop that around. So we need a better way for that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question, which is probably a bit of a tee-up question, but it's actually like something that I'm genuinely interested in, because in my job, I'm working on a lot of the like MCP stuff, and part of that is like authentication for the users, say be it Gmail or whatever. How are you seeing people, like using, how is like auth evolving with agents, and with, you granting your users needing to like manage their own auth with their apps within your app and stuff. And
there's a really wide gamut right now, everywhere from people that are insanely experimenting, like OpenClaw, such as myself, granting certain access to your Gmail account and CLI tools and saying, go, because I don't really care, all the way up to really, mature, like machine-to-machine systems that are kind of coming on the scene. That's something that we're working on at WorkOS. Probably have more to share eventually.
Yeah, it's a problem we're really looking to solve, like agent identity and how that goes. And we have all of the pieces there. It's just how do we assemble them in a way that works best for agents and users, and puts it together. But in a practical sense, something I've been experimenting with Pi and kind of switching over to that. And I realized that there's something that I greatly miss in Pi compared to Claude, which Claude I just got switched over to like the enterprise Claude plan through work. And through that, like it's now connected to the desktop app. And I think somebody in our IT department like set up all these connectors like within that. So they're like Slack and Linear and Notion and all of these different connectors. And when they're authenticated in the desktop app, I can just like paste a Slack thread into Claude code, and now it can read that thread and it knows where to go, or it can search Notion, or it can do any of that. And it just has all of that full context. And honestly, once I realized that, it made it feel like magic, and it makes me desperately miss it when I'm in Pi.
Yeah. I will plus one that. That was something I mentioned in my talk, is that I was kind of trying to look backwards retrospectively to see what are the things that caused me the worst context switch penalty.
Yeah.
And for me, it was Slack, because there's always something interesting or a different conversation going on. But that's also where asks come in, or feedback and bug reports, right? And then I already had Claude able to read and write to my Linear, which I find very useful, because you can kind of put subtasks for bugs and also feature development that you want. But once I got Slack connected, the loop kind of became complete, and I could remain in focus mode in Claude and do feature development, and then say, kind of, you can loop and look for, incoming asks on Slack every 10, 15 minutes. And then if that's not already a Linear ticket, you just make it for me, but we're not being pulled off task every time. And I don't have to alt tab, 30 times to get one ticket fixed.
Yeah.
Not to mention that the thing I was working on had a Slack bot component to it. And so when I said, this is a bug that I want you to fix and verify yourself, Claude now had the complete tool loop that it needed to go all the way through, post its own test message that would trigger that bug, and then verify by reading the
Oh,
class message
yeah,
fix,
because it
then mark the
That's
linear ticket
fantastic.
done, and then I'm like, cool, now we can move on to the next.
that's wild.
That was a big unlock, and it could be as little as 2 connectors that people need to add to get to that loop.
Are you seeing anything with like permissions and like like say Gmail, for instance, like how people are giving, permissions? Because sending an email could be really destructive, and then obviously like when you're using like these MCPs, it could be like 800 different Gmail tools, and like you might have like multiple apps. Like, are you seeing any like ways that people are like managing all that stuff?
I mean, yeah, I do it myself. I do it the dangerous way to experience it and live it, but to kind of get that scar tissue. But at the same time, it's possible now to to install authkit in an MCP server and get really granular about this tool needs permission, this tool doesn't, like the way that you code it. I think that the DevX there has miles to go still, but it's something that we're actively working on.
Yeah, we do have this pipes MCP tool.
Yeah, I saw.
That really like helps with that, and it gives you like these short-lived sessions, short-lived tokens that you can use to get third-party data into your apps and stuff, and do it in a more secure way. And that's something that's out now and that we're actively working on to improve and
adding new connectors too. So I think that'll be part of it as well. And I think when that kind of comes online with another few pieces, then eventually we'll have a kind of coherent experience where you can develop from an agent first perspective.
Yeah, super cool. I need that. Okay, and then we're getting on to like the more like we're all trying to reach developers, right? And workshops, I think, is something that you guys do a great job at. If someone's thinking of running well, I guess like maybe someone doesn't even know what like a workshop really means here, but like, could you tell us like how you think about it and how you what makes it good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the main thing is like focus on the content. What are you trying to teach? Tell a complete story in that, and like the narrative is driven through those stories, and that's how people are going to remember it and how they're going to have fun with it, and you can have a lot of fun in that experience. One thing that we learned from the workshop that you went to with Unmastra last year versus the one that we gave this year is like focusing on like the actual output of it. So like that was a big benefit for 80 people in that room last year, but it was also recorded and put on YouTube. And we had several times where we just had like, let's go work for 20 minutes and just dead air. But also like we had the very fortunate like experience to have Sam Bagwa in the audience, the creative master,
and then giving out books as well,
which we didn't really arrange for. It kind of happened that way.
And it was so wonderful, but he wasn't mic'd. And so
all of his founder answered, he's just not.
And so we really focused on that this time. Like not just like for the people in the room, but for the video experience as well. And so we designed it so that we still have those working things, because we think that it's important for you to experience things and like actually get hands on keyboard and try things out. But at the same time, like on that slide where it told you what to do, on the other side, it had a list of topics that Zack and I can just ramble about, that are not necessarily like specific to that section of the workshop, but it's something that we're passionate about. We can talk about this, or we can answer your questions. And the first time we did that, like the first break we got to, we did nothing but answer questions. And it was honestly great because it was just all audience led.
Wow.
We passed mics around, we got it all recorded, and it was fantastic. So I'm really excited to see the video when it comes out and see how much better it is as an experience to watch after the fact.
Also recommend, both times we've provided GitHub resources in advance. Like we make a repo that goes with it. It's free, it's open source. And that way, if you're, really champing at the bit, you can kind of download that first and get started. But also something super cool that Nick built into both of them using Claude is the concept of like checkpoints. So if you got here late, you can checkpoint to where we are now at 3. If you've gotten behind and got stuck on something and now you want to see the end experience, you jump ahead to the 75% point. But it's also yet another resource that you get, and it shows like this is an actual application that you can run. And it's like, we're not just kind of hand waving, like this actually works. You can run it yourself if you don't believe us. So that's been useful too. And then do stuff that you're actually passionate about, that you like to build, work with. I always come in now, I think now I'm going to take it as like a positive sign going forward, that I come in thinking like, oh, no one's going to find this interesting. This is like a year ago stuff. And people are just eat it up and say, this is amazing. And it's like so super helpful. So it's because we've spent every day playing with that stuff.
It's like a genuine interest.
Yeah.
And people are at different levels, and you just have to realize that you're always going to know more than some people and less than others. And
For sure.
so there's always like value in adding content at all layers of that spectrum. And I think that another thing that like is really like good final point to that too is to make it fun and interactive. And so for this one, we had, it was on skills, and I thought, oh, how fun would it be if we could like show the skills that people in the workshop are actually building.
Yeah.
And so just like very quickly with Claude, I built like a little worker that and a bash script, and anyone in the workshop could run it, and it would just immediately package, like zip up their script and put it into a Cloudflare KV. And then I could run another script on mine and just pull it down with their name and everything.
Oh, cool.
And then immediately run it against my repo and test it out.
Yeah.
And
a roast your repo tool.
Yeah. It was a roast repo.
We did that live in the middle of the workshop. Someone had put one up, and then Nick pulled it down and then used his to roast our own repo.
Yeah.
Oh, it had all of his personality and all of his, like, everything he injected in it.
We got a 60%. I'll be honest.
Okay, let's agree.
Yeah. But I think also one of the validating things that goes against that 60% is that one person in the audience didn't do the workshop at all. They actually took a picture of the slide that we had with the QR code on it and sent it to their Hermes bot. And the Hermes bot did the whole workshop and submitted submitted examples to that tool. And we were pulling them down and running them. And he came up after the fact and told us and showed us the whole transcript with Hermes where it did everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it good?
It was good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So I highly recommend the QR code and repo pattern. If
Yeah.
you're doing a workshop, and do something that you've been kind of hacking on for a while that you've kind of have actual hands-on experience with.
Yeah, I remember even the Master one. I can't, like, my brain's failing me, but I remember like everyone was posting in Slack.
Yeah.
It was a meme generator.
Meme generator.
But it was actually, it actually had the concept of slots. So
Yeah.
that the memes that you put out it was not just the image, but it was multiple slots. And so you could actually get pretty complex memes, and you could describe in one word what you wanted.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was that it was using agentic tool calls to flow through multiple steps to get that end result.
Yeah.
So that's the thing where it's like, you think you're having fun, we're just joking around and roasting, but it's like, but you spent the afternoon actually packaging and sharing skills.
It was a workplace venter,
Right.
is the idea. When you just
that
vent
was
your
it.
day,
Yeah.
and it would make the perfect meme for you.
Yes. I think I remember making one about the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, indeed. That's all. Yeah, the bane of all conferences.
Yeah.
I think one day we're all going to walk around with just hard line Ethernet.
Yeah. We'll go back. Yeah,
right.
That'll be great. We'll just have like backpacks.
Yep.
Starlinks on them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that workshop, I don't know, like, and maybe this one too, like, you know, you guys work for WorkOS, like the workshop was about Mastra. There was like, yeah, it was a very like, you know, strong, like, cause as an attendee, I thought it was amazing. Cause it was like, they genuinely want to like teach me something, and it's great. But I love to hear like the thought around that, because that's quite an unconventional thing to do. Most people, you go to the workshop and it's like, all right, I work for XYZ. Here's how to use XYZ with, you know,
2 hour nice. Kind of.
I'm so allergic to that. Just my,
Same here.
I
just
feel that
do it.
can't do it. And you know, we're doing a lot of really cool things. Like the skills one that we did this time is just built out of like the day-to-day work that Zack and I do, and like everyone at WorkOS does.
Yeah.
And so like it's really just us sharing our knowledge and our excitement and our passion about it. And the tools and our products speak for themselves. And you know, we had one slide in there that just showed the WorkOS logo, and we mentioned we're hiring and everything like that.
Yeah.
Of course, but you know, then we get to just move on and have fun doing the stuff that we love as developers and teaching. And Zack and I are really fond of doing that and teaching to people. And so we focus on that, and we want to get that value out of it without it feeling like we're just selling to you the whole time.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get a lot of good leeway for that at WorkOS. Like, we're trusted to kind of just go and design the workshop, and often on the plane ride over. But you know, it comes out well because it's coming from a place of pure developer joy.
Yeah. I always like, when with guests, I always say to people, you know, I think if you're saying useful things, people are going to be interested in you, and then wonder like, oh, what are they building? Where do they work? Like, and
I
then
think the same way. Yeah.
but if you just start with like, we're the greatest way to do it's like, no one's going to really care anyway at that point.
Yeah.
And it's like, they might be like, oh, that they're a bit salesy. Like, I don't.
Oh yeah.
And hey, it worked. A year later, you're asking us.
Yeah, that. Well, it's like, well, they say developers are allergic to marketing. Like, developers our whole lives, you know, and so that's like, I almost think that we can't make that kind of workshop because it's like I wouldn't attend that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my brain would turn off.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think more people should do that. Just be useful, like, regardless, and then I think people will care about what you're doing for sure. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I guess you haven't been able to go to as many talks as possible, but is there anything that you're feeling like really excited about at the moment in the kind of like AI engineering space?
Harness engineering has been a fascination for me for the last couple of months. I've been working on my own, and just like the idea of I'm going to build this thing that is trying to be me and do the work as I would do it. And specifically, like, it focuses on two things that I think are just so underutilized and so important to focus on. And that's like, prove to me without me having to look at the code that you did the work that I expected to. So really like focus around evidence, but then also do retrospectives on yourself. Have memory, understand what you did right, what you did wrong. Did I make too many tool calls that are the same without changing anything? Why did I do that? Let's fix that. And write that down. Like, have the tool do that. We like, my tool does a retrospective after everything that it does, and then creates memory files for that. And then it prunes it as well. So it'll clean it up as things become less relevant. But it stays focused, and that means that every single time I use it, it's getting better. And I can also guide it.
Yeah. Similar for me. I mean, it's kind of the stuff I'm hacking on is OpenClaw. I'm going to experiment with Hermes next. Most recent upgrade I gave to my OpenClaw was a Hack RF1 radio software-defined radio that I plugged into the same system. And then within maybe a 30-minute chat, OpenClaw built me like OpenRTX so I could log in over a Tailscale service on my phone and see and tune the radio and like pick up like ATC and pick up like pilots talking. And I want to, because I find radio waves fascinating, I know nothing about them. And so I wanted to have like a sort of substrate to go and work on that. And then I want to figure out, are there algorithms that we could either use or design to like do scanning and pick up like these are the ones that are active and like this is what people are saying kind of thing. But the same way, I find the value in having that system is just being able to talk into, you know, I'm a traffic light. I've got 2 kids in the back of the car and I'm like, that's the idea for how I'm going to solve that. Or that's the idea for how I tie a blog post together. And I just fire off a 30-second voice message to OpenClaw. And then by the time I can actually sit down and work on it again at 9 p.m. that night, the context has been preserved and it's already in one place and I can just get that artifact out. So that's the value that I'm finding there. And I think that that's going to be, I mean, probably next year our agents will be able to have some secure side channel where they can pass information back and forth. Or you know,
next year we're going to come on and Zach's going to tell you that the perfect time to plan your work for the day is when your heart rate's at 78 beats per minute and there's an AC 130 right above.
Because the frequency is, it's not interfering with your Wi-Fi at all. Now's the time to push to get up.
That would be weird if you imagine that, like, when a plane was above you, you were like hyper productive or something. That would be weird. You realize like
things you don't want to know.
Weird stuff going on.
Yeah, maybe there's such a thing as too much knowledge.
Yeah.
I did think it would be really interesting to make like almost like a homebrewed citizen app where it's just like picking up enough frequency to tell you here's what's actually going on around you, right? The real question is, do I want that information today or not?
It's true.
What's better for mental health? But I think it's going to be agents, and I think it's going to be more insane tool calls.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, guys. That was really fun.
Yeah. This is
Thanks everyone for listening.